What if you could help write the story? This is the Brew Ink Podcast. This is episode 2. How many times have we been watching a movie or a TV show and we see a character do something and we're like, no, don't do that. Like, I know for me, I've been watching a movie and a character doing something stupid has completely ruined the rest of the movie. The rest of the movie, I'm sitting there thinking, dude, you could have shot him like an hour ago, you know?
Yeah.
Basically, what we're doing is we're letting you choose the direction and we're going to write the story. That's the idea here. And we've got 4 writers. We've got our writers group, Brew Ink Writing Group. And I just kind of wanted to talk for just a second about something when I was growing up. This is going to date me badly probably, but back in 1988, DC Comics did something really interesting. And I remember this, and I was young, but I remember this. This was a huge deal. They had a storyline with Batman and Robin where they brought Robin up to this point where he got all beat up by the Joker. And I don't know if you guys remember all this.
I remember.
And then they brought it up to the point where Batman discovers the body or whatever's going on, and they tell the audience, you get to vote. You get to vote on whether or not.
Does he make it or
does
is he
he
dead?
make it? Is he dead?
Yeah.
And so, and as it was world famous now, the audience killed off Robin. They were so annoyed by this character, and he was, and like DC just played into some of that. And so I always remember that as a writer, and as I was growing up with comic books, I thought, what a great idea to take the story to a certain point and then just let the audience make a decision. Let the audience say, no, don't do that. And that's what we did last week. So we started the story, and I started the first episode, and I wrote it, kind of set everything up, and it got us to a point where Deb and Troy, and they're at this race, and she's got some sort of additive that makes the car special. They're a little Impala, though Impalas aren't really little, but where it makes it special, and it explodes, and what's going to happen to Troy? And the audience voted.
Yeah, and I thought for a second there they were going to kill Troy off too, just like Robin.
Yeah,
and it turned like right at the last few hours of voting.
It did, and I had people texting me going, "Oh no." Like, it's not looking good for Troy.
Right.
And I'm like, well, somebody, we're going to kill off a character. The audience is going to kill off a character
right from the
beginning. So for those of you who voted and you're listening to this for the second time, thank you so much. So this is what we're trying to practice. The reason why we need you guys to vote is, as writers, we do writing exercises. So we each have our different genres. We each have our different comfort zones, as it will. But a good writer doesn't just write in their comfort zone. A good writer can be given something, and even though they may not be good at it, they try to do something within certain parameters. If you're a writer out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You do these writing exercises. So what we're practicing is this. Number 1, word count. Number 2, being concise. Number 3, having an active voice. And especially getting to the choices. When we get to the end of a scene, you can't resolve what's going on. If everyone gets what they want, then the story's over. So we have to have either a yes, but, or a no, and. So we're getting the story to the point where something's going to happen, and either people get what they want, but it has extra consequences. That's yes, but, where it has extra consequences they weren't planning on, or no, they don't get what they want, and it just gets worse.
It's the pile-on.
And it's a pile-on. So that's what we're doing. So for those of you guys who voted, you guys are awesome. And we really appreciate it, and we hope you vote again this week.
Yes, thank you so much.
So I'm going to kind of give a little quick kind of update on what's been going on with all of our writers. One of our kind of regulars, she's not here, and we really hope that we all get to meet Katie at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Evie especially, as we can have some, more estrogen here in this gathering. So first, I'll start with me. Again, my name is Britt Mooney, but my writing name is MB Mooney, and a couple things this week. I got started again on a 3rd book in my urban fantasy series, The Twilight of the Gods. So I got about 7,000 words in this week, and that was
Nice.
really encouraging because just getting into that creative space where you're starting to think about the story when you're doing other things, and that's just, I needed to get to that spot. So that was good. I also just bit the bullet and have an artist illustrator now working on the cover for my third book in the epic fantasy series, The Fire Reborn. And she's awesome. And I can't wait to show you guys this cover, man. She is such a great artist. I'm really looking forward to what she does. So that's kind of the update with me. Evie, what's going on with you?
I am still working on my fantasy book, Ezekiel 37, and finally on a roll. I feel like the first draft is finally rolling out like it's supposed to. For a while there, it was a little slow. So right now I'm working on kind of refining some of the middle of the chapters.
How far in would you say you are?
Right now, let's see. Well, they're actually finally started the adventure, so that's always good. So about at the beginning in the middle.
Just kind of like wrapping up the first third is where you're at.
Wrapping up the first third, yep.
Good, excellent. And Bill has some great news for us in this episode. What's been going on with you, Bill?
Yeah, been working real hard and putting out about 13,000 words a week. And this week, just 2 days ago, I wrapped up a first draft of my third book. It's called CPA,
Yes. Awesome.
Certified Public Assassin, and it is literally about an accountant who trips into a new career as an assassin. And as is tradition, when I finish a first draft, I pop the cork on a bottle here. So let's see what happens. Let's hope we don't hurt anybody here.
All
right.
All right. Okay.
Very nice. I mean, that's an accomplishment. And you're saying the total count on that was
87,500. So
yeah,
That's great.
it's a pretty good number for a crime comedy book. So when I say comedy, it's a caper book. So it's from the criminal or from the, yeah, she's really a criminal now. She didn't start off that way.
She's an accidental criminal.
She is an accidental criminal. Actually, some of the things she does are intentionally criminal, but the killing is not. This is always. Yeah. We're not giving away anything on that.
No.
All right, so that it's been a real fun time working on
cheers,
the story.
man.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.
good job.
Cheers. And this is also called Brew Ink because we will drink while we do this podcast. So tonight I have some coffee from some Phoenix Roasters coffee. It's a Panamanian medium with some light fruity nodes in the roast. I brought it from home and it's awesome. And then we have this lovely champagne here that we're toasting. Bill's awesome accomplishment when he finishes something, and that's part of what we're doing with the writers group is to encourage one another to keep working because it's really difficult to get working on a project and to stay working on a project.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about writing books, but very few of them actually do it.
Yeah.
And that's because it's hard to stay consistent. So having encouragement and community.
And one of these days we'll have to go over the cycles that authors go through.
Oh yeah. All right, so we're going to get into Stephen now. For the first few episodes, we're going to try to kind of highlight one of our writers. And since Stephen is writing this episode's portion of the story, we're going to kind of interview him. So I just wanted to go over a couple questions here and let you just talk for about 5 or 10 minutes,
Okay.
and then we'll get into the story, all right? So here's my first question. When did you get into writing? Was there a specific moment or a process where you felt like, hey, I really want to start creating my own stories? Like, what was that like for you?
Well, I kind of have two different moments like that. I have the one where I remember getting into it and thinking, I want to write something that's, big and epic and a full story. And then as I was going through that process, and this was after college, I was in a ministry where we did 24/7 prayer and worship, and I was in the night watch portions of it. So I was up 2 a.m. in the morning, and this story idea just kind of downloads to my head, and I start writing notes and all this and going for it, and just started hitting it after that, really trying to write every day, and it was after this point that I started reflecting and going, I've been writing for a while now, and one of the first key moments that I had as a child is in about 4th grade. I just moved down to Georgia, which is where we're at now, and I moved from Illinois. And a friend of mine, we got together and we would write scary stories together. And, you know, a lot of it was influenced for me through Goosebumps. I was reading Goosebumps at the time, and, you know, every good kid growing up in the 90s. And, yeah, I remember working on those projects with him, and we wrote, you know, like 4 or 5 short, scary stories. And I remember turning one in to the teacher, and the teacher taking me aside and asking, like, did you write this yourself? Where did this come from? Sort of thing. And then, you know, kind of telling her, like, oh, yeah, no, this is just something we've been working on.
Did your mom write this?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So that, like, looking back now, I remember that kind of being the moment when I first started trying to write stories out that were kind of shared on a, you know, more public level. And before that, you know, I think most everything was just for a school assignment if I'd written. And then through middle school and high school, I remember in middle school I was in honors English class, and it was one of the first times we got to pick our book for our book assignment for our you know, what we were going to read over the course of that class, and I had picked The Hobbit. And I remember every time I read Tolkien, it was just like I wanted to write. Like, it was being brought out of me. Like, as I was reading his stuff, I would then find myself trying to think of a storyline of my own, not even like a fantasy storyline, just trying to write. And I carried that into high school, where I would write throughout like my lunch periods. And, you know, I'd forgotten all of this through college, you know, and working and all that. And it wasn't until I came out on the other end that, like I said, I had that download of the story, and getting into writers group is what grew it further past that point.
Yeah.
Cast the vision, you know, for how can we see these stories completed.
Yeah, good. So, as most of you writers know at home, and the 4 of us know, writing is really hard work. A lot of people think, and I think the reason why a lot of people get into writing and then they quit is because they think, oh, writing's so fun and I really want to do this. And then they get to a spot and they go, oh my God, this sucks, or whatever. It just gets too hard, or life gets too busy, or all this stuff starts happening. So it often takes a lot of time and effort for any writer to get to a place where they're even making money. Like, some people write for years and spend a lot of money in conferences and stuff like that before they ever get to a place where they're published or whatever. So for you, what keeps you doing it? What keeps you writing? What keeps the love of it? What is it about it that you love that keeps you coming back and working hard and just having that experience?
That's a good question. I mean, other than I'm drawn to story. I have a proclivity, like when I'm watching a movie, I tend to pick out things from it and analyze it that other people that I'm watching the movie with are like, what? Where did you get that from? And it's just having this underlying kind of understanding of story and story arcs, and then feeling that inside, like wanting to express that in my own way, in my own words. And for me, like, just that's the passion part of it, but what's the drive part of it? And which is really, I think, kind of what this question is asking. And the drive part is being able to have an avenue and an outlet which to share it, which sometimes it's you know, with my wife, kids, you know, my kids right now, they just want to read their little picture books and not really listen to any of the stuff that I'm writing. But my wife, at first, she was the one that would listen to a lot of my stuff, and then sharing with friends, and getting feedback from that, and then having people come back up to me and say, when are you going to finish that next book? Or, hey, have you been writing? I want to read more stuff, or I want to hear something. That encouragement, that I think, you know, that does help keep that passion going and that drive. And then setting a standard. How am I going to write? How much am I going to write? When am I going to write? That also what keeps it going, because like you said, it's a long process. Mm-hmm. And when I was first struggling through it on my own, outside of a writer's group, I would get, you know, chapters in, so many pieces of the story written, and then nothing for like 3 months, 6 months. And then you come back, and it's just that much longer of a process to get back into it at that point. And I think that's where a lot of people will stop, or they'll give up. And when we started challenging each other to be consistent, I think that is one of the things that helps keep me going, because it helps keep that passion. You know, every morning you wake up. For me, I write in the morning, so when I write, it's the first thing I'm doing in the morning, and it gets me out of bed. You know, I'm laying there, and you don't want to get up. The sun's not up. Your alarm's going off, then you start thinking about, okay, what could I write today? What is the next section? What's the next part I'm working on? And with it being fresh in my mind, that gets me going. That gets me back behind the computer and writing again.
Good. Yeah, there's something, as a reason why we celebrated tonight as we're recording this, and cheers again to Bill. And there's something about, I was listening to another podcast. I'm not going to give any ads yet. We don't have that many people. But I was listening to this other podcast about how important it is to finish something. When we get to the end, and it's so important to have those things in life where we recognize I finished something.
Yeah.
Like there's a feeling of accomplishment. And with a first draft, or when you edit something, or when we publish something, and that's why, again, some of these groups, for those of you who are writers, if you don't have one, try to find these people, or online, or so. There's a whole lot of ways to do it, because having groups to keep you on that path is invaluable.
You need someone to share it with.
You need someone to share it with.
You need feedback.
And someone to hold you accountable and go,
Yeah.
have you been writing? And for us, it's the accountability of saying, we're meeting in 2 weeks, and what you got. And you keep showing up with nothing, right?
You feel it. You feel it.
Yeah. So awesome. So that's Stephen, and he writes a lot of sci-fi right now. He's also got some experience in fantasy. So hopefully, as he's editing one of his current projects, and he'll be talking more about that progress as we go. All right. So let's get into the story. So we're going to do. Stephen's going to read. He's got his part of it ready. It's just under 1,500 words, and it's awesome, and we're really excited about it. So we're going to hand it over to Stephen now.
Boneyard, Episode 2. I didn't know what to do. I just froze as the Impala came to rest upside down on its roof. Those first few seconds seemed to drag on for days. I remember hearing in the distance Bobby's cutlass Brody out as he swung it around, coming to a halt facing the scene of destruction that none of us could believe we were seeing. I saw Bobby get halfway out of his car, lit cigarette falling from his open, slack jaw as he stared in disbelief. I wanted to punch him in his stupid face. It was all his fault, but I knew it wasn't really. I just needed someone to blame at the moment. Finally, I came to my senses. Still frozen in place, I yelled out, "Troy!" Flames dancing across the undercarriage of the Impala, smoke billowing up, blackening the night sky even darker. I made a move to run to the car when someone grabbed my arm from behind. "No, that's a bad scene, Mama. There ain't no way he survived that. You don't want to be seeing all that, you dig?" It was Bobby. I glared at him. "You shut your mouth, Bobby, you scuzzbag. He ain't dead, you hear?" "Y'all can pay me my winnings after you get this all sorted out," he said. The nerve of him. I really did deck him one then. I wasn't the best at throwing a punch, but my brother Troy had taught me how to use my 2 knuckles for a solid hit. My fist glanced off Bobby's shoulder at an awkward angle, but it was enough to shake his skinny bones, and he let me go. As I ran to the car, all I kept praying was, "God, don't let him be dead. Please, God, my papa will kill me if he's dead." I dropped to my knees at the driver's side window. Wild Thing still blared through the radio. Troy was buckled in, hanging upside down, arms hanging limp, his eyes opened and glassed over, drool and blood dripping from his mouth, his nose oozing red. But he was still breathing, shallow, labored breaths, but at least he was alive. "Troy!" I yelled again, shaking him by his shoulders. No response. I could hear the crowd behind me murmuring to one another. I turned to glance at them. Was no one going to help me? Was no one going to help Troy? "Help me! Someone! Help!" I called out, but my voice was cut off by a loud popping noise coming from the trunk. I heard murmurs from the crowd. They were scared that the car was going to blow up, backing away even further. One of Bobby's friends grabbed him, saying, "Come on, man, we gotta beat it before the fuzz shows up. You know they're gonna be on their way now." I shook my head as Bobby ran off, the rest of the crowd following him. They were all more afraid of what might happen to them if the cops caught them drunk and underage at an illegal drag race, rather than making sure Troy was okay. Fine. I didn't need them. I would save Troy myself. The flames were hotter now. I could feel the heat searing my skin. The smell of burning rubber and singed hairs made my stomach do flips, but I held it together for Troy. Reaching into the car, I went to undo the safety belt. It was a good thing he wore it, or he'd be dead on the pavement somewhere, thrown from the car when it had flipped and rolled. Papa had always drilled it into our heads. Put that damn lap belt on and we ain't going nowhere. The habit had saved Troy's life. Careful, Deb, came the voice of Walt from behind me. He knelt down on the rough asphalt next to me. His chubby knees seemed awkward in a kneeling position, his gut hanging out from under his untucked shirt. He probably sustained a neck injury. If you undo that belt, he might fall and injure his neck further, paralyzing him, or worse. He trailed off, not wanting to finish that thought. How do you know all that? I asked, then shaking my head. Never mind, help me get him out of this car. Walt took hold of Troy's shoulder as I clicked the button to unlatch the lap belt. The heat was stifling inside the car. Troy came sliding halfway out the car window, his fall controlled by Walt guiding Troy's shoulders and my arms around his waist. The three of us collapsed there next to the smoldering wreckage, Walt and I breathing hard, Troy's breathing ragged and weak. Looking him over, I saw Troy looked mostly intact. There were a few lacerations across his face and arms, a bruise on his chest where he'd hit the steering wheel, but no puncture wounds to be seen. Then I saw the crazy way his right foot was angled, a bone, white and grisly looking, protruding from his right shin. I kept my stomach from lurching again, motioning for Walt to look at it. We're going to need something to stop the bleeding, he said. Do you know how to make a tourniquet? A what? I asked. Here, use my belt. Walt undid his belt. The crack of his butt came sliding out of his pants as he bent over to fasten it around Troy's broken leg, but up near the thigh, not down by the broken bone. It's not tight enough, Walt said. What? I asked. I thought you knew what you were doing. I know what to do. I just never done it before. I need something thinner, like a handkerchief or a scarf or a piece of your shirt. Did he just ask me to rip my shirt off? I thought. Then I remembered the mechanic's handkerchief I had in my back pocket. I pulled it out, covered in oil stains and grease. Will this do? I asked. Walt looked up from fidgeting with the belt, pushing his glasses back up the bridge of his nose. That's perfect, Deb. Grabbing it, he tied it around Troy's leg, getting it nice and tight, and he slid the belt over it, strapping it down tighter. Wow, that was nifty. How did you know to do all that? I asked him. Pressing his glasses back into place, he looked sheepishly into my eyes, then quickly away. I got the feeling this was the longest conversation he'd ever had with the girl. I don't know. I read a lot, I guess, he replied after a time. What do we do about Troy? We gotta get him to a hospital. We can't carry him, it's too far. And we don't have a car. My sister's supposed to come pick me up any time now. Maybe she can drive us to a hospital. We can't wait that long, I said, sighing in frustration. The smell of the burning car was intense, but now a new smell filled my nostrils. It was sweet-smelling and made my brain feel tingly. Then I saw it. My additive, the power juice, leaking out of the trunk and pooling on the pavement. We had rigged a 3-gallon tank full of the liquid in the trunk to soup up the car's top speed. The valve off the top of that tank must have been what had exploded earlier. It had been my damn additive that did this to Troy. I wish we had never found that mysterious substance hidden there in the boneyard. We had been digging around for car parts when Troy discovered it, concealed under a pile of scrap metal, an old rusty trap door. It was an abandoned bomb shelter lined with shelves full of rocks I'd never seen before. Through a series of experiments, I discovered we could use parts of the rock to make a powder that, when added to alcohol, like my papa's whiskey, concocted a liquid that made fuel sources more efficient. The weirdest thing was, it burned cold. That's when Troy got his bright idea. Deb, I know how do we get you into racing. This kid from school, Bobby, he's been bragging that if anyone beat his cutlass, he would give them his car. We're going to take that challenge. We're going to win you a car, Deb. Troy knew I wanted to race. Winning that car would give me the opportunity. I was so blinded by the chance of having my own car, I just assumed the plan was foolproof. Boy, had we been wrong. Now, smelling those vapors and looking at Troy's mangled body, I cursed the idea, wishing I had never agreed to the plan in the first place. Then, something unexpected happened. Walt and I locked eyes, staring at each other in disbelief, but I would have never expected what was about to happen next. End of episode 2.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
That was amazing, man. That was really good. All right, so what are your 2 options?
All right, there's options that you guys have to vote on. Option 1, Deb and Walt feel themselves increasing in strength and speed from inhaling these vapors. So sort of like a super soldier thing going on there. Option 2, Troy's body begins to heal itself as he inhales the vapors.
Right? And I think we agreed on an option 3. So those are the 2 options that Stephen came up with. And I think our third option is going to be that the fuzz do show up, that the cops do actually show up.
That's
so
right.
That's going to be the third option. So again, let's go over the first option is that Dev and Walt start to feel like enhancements somehow in their body, strength and speed. Option 2, Troy starts to get healed by inhaling these vapors. And then option 3 for the next rider is going to be that the fuzz show up and whatever consequences that would be.
Right.
All right. So our next rider is going to be Bill.
All right. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
And you guys vote well. Okay, you guys vote really well. That's important for me.
Give him a hard option.
And so also I just wanted to say that Stephen actually probably had the hardest job of all. Okay? I had the easiest job in setting up the story, and then he was kind of the guinea pig, and we've been working out the kinks of the whole process of the next person being handed the story and what that looks like. So kudos to Stephen. It's really awesome. Okay, so the most important thing is where do they go and vote? So what are the 2 main places they're going to go vote?
They can go to the Facebook page. There will be a poll on there for voting. Then we'll also have an off Facebook poll where people can get to that through our website or emails that we send out for the people that don't have Facebook. And then we will take both of those polls and we'll compile the numbers to get our totals.
Okay. And the Facebook page is?
Brew and Ink. And that's just, you're going to Facebook/Brew and Ink, and you can use a search to do Brew &Ink.
Good. And the website is?
The website is www.brewandink.com.
All spelled out, right?
All
Brew
spelled
and
out.
Ink.
Yep.
And I think the Facebook page is all spelled out too, right? Brew and
Yeah,
Ink.
if you're writing it in to the HTTP, like you're writing it in, you're going to spell it out. If you're searching for it on Facebook, you can use Brew &Ink.
Good. All right. All right, that's it for this episode. Good job, guys. Excited. And please, guys, vote, listen, vote, share it if you will. If you're excited about it, just be looking for some more stuff coming up soon. We may have a happy hour at some point where we do something fun.
Yeah.
For Brew and Ink. But
and if you know anyone that would be interested in this, share our Facebook page, invite them to the Facebook page so they can get updates, and share the podcast with them. Like we said, we're on iTunes, we're on Google Play, we're on. Did we get on Spotify?
We're not on Spotify yet. It'll be a couple weeks.
Yeah, but we're definitely on YouTube. We've got a video on there.
Absolutely.
I think we're in Stitcher, and now we're on TuneIn as well. So we've got a lot of different options for everybody. So how do we close out the show again?
Well, we're going to raise a glass to inspiration.
Raise a glass to inspiration. All right. God bless everybody. Have a good one.